Well, good morning. I'd like to share a passage of Scripture to begin this talk. It comes from 1 Peter 3:15, and it says this, "But sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts, always being ready to make a defense to everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you, yet with gentleness and reverence." You just never know when God will give you an opportunity to share His truth that might make an eternal impact on somebody's life. I remember I had been a Christian for about 4 years, and I'd been selected to be a squadron commander at a base in California, Travis Air Force Base. That's a big deal in the Air Force. It meant that I was going to be responsible for the welfare of about 800 people. Anytime you become a squadron commander, there's a ceremony called a change of command, at which time you have to make a speech to your people. It's a mandatory formation, so the entire squadron of 800 people were there. And I don't remember much about what I said, but what I do remember was that I began my remarks by quoting Proverbs 3:5 and 6, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your paths." And as I was looking at the audience, I could see some people just tapping their feet. I could see people rolling their eyes. They just, oh my gosh, this is another one of those religious fanatics. This is just going to be great. Well, if you fast forward about a year into my tenure as a squadron commander, there was a situation that happened. A young airman that worked for me was married. He had a little 2-year-old boy. His wife was a stay-at-home mom. She'd been watching the Army recruiter TV commercials that said back in that day, "Be all that you can be." And so she made a decision that she was going to drop kick her husband and their child and join the Army and be all that you could be. Well, as you can imagine, it stressed that young airman out. And so after work one day, he left the base and he drove to the first bar that he could find and just got incredibly drunk. About 1 o'clock in the morning, he tries to drive back to the base. Now, Travis Air Force Base is right on Highway 80, and the exit to the base is a 4-lane highway with a median. And so this young airman, as drunk as he was, he thought he was still on a freeway, and when he got to the security police gate, he thought it was a toll booth, and he tried to pay a toll. Well, he gets arrested. Next morning, he's got up here before Colonel Martin for discipline. And I'm going to take money and I'm going to take stripes. So he knocks on the door. He walks into my office. He's standing in front of my desk. He's shaking like this. I don't think it had anything to do with his fear of me. I think it was the alcohol. And he's saluting like this. And I'm just silent. And he says, "Colonel Martin, I know you're going to discipline me in some way, and I know that I deserve it, but what can I do to save my family?" And it was like God saying, ding, 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 this young fella has a teachable moment. Before I could say one word, he pours out his story. And so I said a quick prayer, "Lord, what would you have me share with this young man?" So I told him, "Well, I don't know a lot about your circumstance, but I do know a little bit about being a godly husband, being a godly father. I get it from the Bible if you're willing for me to share that with you." At that moment, he's willing to listen to anything. And so we sat down and I shared with him from Ephesians 5 about loving your wife the way Christ loved the church and sacrificing yourself for her. When he left, he told the first sergeant, "That's the wisest man that I have ever met." But you see, it had absolutely nothing to do with me. It was all about Jesus and the truth in His Word. And when I left Travis Air Force Base a couple of years later, having completed my tour as a squadron commander, his wife had not left him. She had not joined the Army. They were still together. My point, you never know when God will give you an opportunity to share His truth that'll make an eternal impact on someone's life.